Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to our next podcast. Since we started Are We Living in the Last Days.com, we haven't focused much on the Antichrist. We do have a very in-depth article covering what the Bible tells us about him, but we haven't really talked much about him elsewhere other than to point out that Prince Charles clearly made a reference to him being here and working behind the scenes right now. The reason he hasn't been much of a focus for us is simply because, to us, he really isn't that important. And what I mean by that is the Antichrist cannot assume his final role until we have been taken from here in the rapture. If you know who he really is, and I really mean know who he is, because you see him step onto the scene, then you have been left behind and you might want to start worrying about that. Our focus is to point out that the ship is sinking and get as many people as possible onto the life rafts, and then secondarily leave information behind that can aid tribulation saints. So to that end, we want to talk about the Antichrist. I know it may seem a little counterintuitive to focus so little on the single most central figure during tribulation outside of Jesus, but based on what I just mentioned, I believe you get where we're coming from. And with that said, let's take a look at what we know about the Antichrist.
Yeah, even though the Bible does not tell us exactly who the Antichrist is, the scriptures are very clear on what traits and characteristics he will possess when he will come onto the world stage and what he will do once he takes power. Revelation 6 tells us, "Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the four living creatures say with a voice like thunder, 'Come and see, and look and behold a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer.'" This is the Antichrist. Notice that he has a bow and no arrows, and that he conquers. The Antichrist will initially consolidate his power through diplomatic means. He will not initially use military force to conquer. He will become the world leader because all other world leaders will submit to him. He will be appealing, not repulsive. The Bible refers to the Antichrist as a blasphemous horn in Daniel chapter 7, as lawless in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, and a beast in Revelation chapter 13. Hardly an attractive list of descriptions, but we know that people will follow him from Revelation chapter 13. So he will present himself as an alluring leader at first. He will be super, not ordinary. Everything about the Antichrist will be extraordinary. He will possess great eloquence, charm, wit, military genius, vision, and intelligence. He will be extremely influential and charismatic, a false champion of peace, and will possess strong leadership abilities. One could even say he's a rock star. Daniel chapter 8 tells us that the Antichrist is a king with fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences, which means he will be deeply involved in occult mysteries. He will be filled with satanic power and later become possessed by Satan. He will be a Gentile, not a Jew. The Bible tells us that the Antichrist will arise out of the sea. Daniel chapter 7 and Revelation chapter 13 indicates that he will arise out of the Gentile nations, not Israel. Daniel chapter 9 tells us that he will either arise out of the old Roman Empire, or his lineage will be that of the area of the old Roman Empire. The prince that shall come will come out of the people who shall destroy the city. Since it was Rome and its legions that destroyed Jerusalem in AD 70, we know that the prince that shall come must come out of the Roman Empire and its people. In Revelation chapter 13, we are told, "The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority." The dragon is Satan, the real power behind the puppet authority of the Antichrist. The Antichrist will have an amazing rise to power, but he won't instantly take his position as the world dictator from out of nowhere. He will not be an ordinary man walking down the street one day and the next day dictator of the world. Rather, he will grow into power like a horn growing out of the head of an animal that we read about in Daniel chapter 7. And as Kevin just mentioned, Prince Charles is already referred to him at the last COP26 meeting.
Who do you think Prince Charles was referring to when at the COP26 meeting he's referring to he? Now, I didn't see... I did not see your video. I saw the video, which you're going to show. Folks, you got to pay attention to this.
Now pay close attention, because this is something that I want you, all of you students, Bible students especially, pay attention to, right? Okay, here we go.
Required. We know this will take trillions, not billions of dollars. We also know that countries, many of whom are burdened by growing levels of debt, simply cannot afford to go green. Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector.
We need a vast military-style campaign to marshal, let me replay it so that you know I'm not making this up, okay? Let me just replay it. Listen to the last part of this. A vast military-style campaign to do what?
Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector.
A vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the what?
Global
private sector.
Yes. Isn't that?
So we're going to basically utilize the mechanisms that have been deployed by private industry to move a cashless society forward. Now, watch what he says, because this gets really significant. Watch this.
With trillions at his disposal.
Huh? Wait.
Disposal.
Let's rewind that again. You know what? Can we do this? Let's play this from the very beginning so that you guys understand that there is no reference to who he is. Who is his? Let me play it again.
Renewable and sustainable. So, ladies and gentlemen, my plea today is for countries to come together to create the environment that enables every sector of industry to take the action required. We know this will take trillions, not billions of dollars. We also know that countries, many of whom are burdened by growing levels of debt, simply cannot afford to go green. Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector. With trillions at his disposal.
Who is his? Look what he goes on to say.
Far beyond global GDP, and with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders, it offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition.
Beyond what? Can I just say the last part of this? Beyond what? Look what he says.
It offers the only real prospect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders. It offers the only real.
Beyond the governments of the world's leaders.
Yeah. So his disposal. So folks, this is absolutely remarkable. And I guarantee you, he said this on purpose. He's reading his notes. Who do you think told him to say this?
This was not a fluke. And by the way, there's only a few guys that have been yelling about this. Me, Tom, Andy Woods, a few others. And you know what they've been doing? They've been erasing this off the internet.
Yeah. This is absolutely remarkable to understand the days that we live in. Okay, so we talk about from Daniel, from Book of Revelation, from various passages, there's going to be a global system. It will rise out of Europe, and they will crown their leader, and it will be a he. It won't be a she, it'll be a he. And the Book of Revelation calls him Antichrist or beast. We would commonly refer to him as Antichrist. He's against Christ. He's going to be the most powerful leader the world has ever known. The Book of Revelation tells us, Revelation chapter 13, that nobody can make war with him. Who can stop him? Absolutely nobody. What does Prince Charles say? Everything that you just heard. This is a remarkable day. Folks, we live in incredible days. Did you know that Prince Charles, I believe he's very likely going to be taking the throne of England soon?
Oh.
Did you know that?
God help us. I know there's been a lot of conversation about it.
He probably is. He probably is. So, but I mean, you look at this, hey, listen, he obviously is talking about someone. He's talking about someone that's a man. He's talking about someone that nobody knows who he is yet. He's the most powerful man in the world. More powerful is he than all of the global leaders combined.
Yep.
Hello. Revelation 17, the 10 kings give their power and authority to the beast.
Bro, he's saying that the leaders who rule these government conglomerations are not enough. They're not sufficient. Millions at his disposal. That's what he's saying is sufficient. That's what he's saying is necessary. And what he's basically saying is the world leaders that are ruling this conglomerate, referring to the body of people in the UN, are not enough. It's got to be the trillions at his disposal.
Trillions at his disposal, and he is more powerful than all of them. And we're going to get all the military, the might together, muster up all of it for his strength.
In other words, a military-style campaign. A military-style campaign means we're going to force this. You don't like what you say? It cuts you off. You don't do this? That's exactly what this is.
Okay, so Revelation chapter 6, rider on the white horse, very first seal, goes about conquering and to conquer. He has a bow but no arrows. In other words, he has military strength, the bow, but he doesn't use it. But what does he do? He conquers, he subdues, he destroys by rules and regulations and crushing. That describes the rider on the white horse, everything that you just saw in that video. Doesn't it?
Absolutely.
The military strength, the bow, no arrows, not going to use the military to destroy you, but going to crush you by every single rule and regulation they are bringing. Klaus Schwab, by 2030, you'll own nothing and like it. Klaus Schwab, somebody behind him has directed him, you're going to run the school. Who is this guy?
Oh, yeah. We don't know. But I can tell you this. I can tell you this is all in preparation for what we read about in Revelation chapter 13.
Yes, it is. If people can't see it now, James, you have to be in denial. You have to write everybody that talks about these things off as a kook, which many people do. Okay. That's fine. We know the Bible is true, and you can't make this stuff up. How could the Bible actually predict these things thousands of years ago that are all happening right now?
That's right.
How could it?
As you just saw the reference to him, keep in mind he will take over the revived Roman Empire, which in its final form will be a European-led confederation of nations. We see this taking shape right now with the European Union, or EU. We also know that at some point after, or at the midway point of tribulation, the Antichrist will move the capital of this one world government from Europe to Jerusalem, as outlined in Daniel 11, verse 4. John's vision of a great beast arising from the Gentile nations, Revelation 13, verses 1 through 4, mirrors Daniel's vision in Daniel 7, verses 2 through 8. John saw 7 heads probably corresponding to the original 10 leaders Daniel saw, including the 3 that had been pulled out by the roots, as told in Daniel 7, verse 8. The 10 crowns represent governments and governmental authority, Revelation 13, verse 1. The horn that arose from the midst of the 10 and deposed 3 is a single individual, as it says, he will speak out in Daniel 7, verse 25. He is named the Antichrist. By exalting himself, he will blaspheme God, he will oppress God's people. He will attempt to change the moral and natural laws. Once in power, he will blaspheme God and persecute the saints. In Daniel 7, verse 25, and Daniel 8, verses 24 through 25, describe this clearly. His power will be mighty, but not by his own power, and he will destroy to an extraordinary degree and prosper and perform his will. He will destroy mighty men and the holy people, and through his shrewdness he will cause deceit to succeed by his influence. And he will magnify himself in his heart, and he will destroy many while they are at ease. He will even oppose the prince of princes, but he will be broken without human agency. When he takes his final place as the world dictator after the rapture, he will rule in the first 3.5 years as a Messiah-type figure. After his assassination and satanic resurrection, he will then rule as a god. Not that he will be.
Yeah, exactly right, Kevin. And at the start of his reign, Daniel foretold that the leader of the revived Roman Empire, which is the Antichrist, will make a 7-year treaty or covenant/agreement with Israel. Daniel chapter 9, 24 through 27 tells us, "So you are to know and discern that from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks, and it will be built again with plaza and moat, even in times of distress. Then after the 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing, and the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and its end will come with a flood. Even to the end there will be war, desolations, and detriment. And he will make a firm covenant with many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering, and on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate, even until a complete destruction, one that is decreed, is poured out on the one who makes desolate. The Antichrist will draw up a 7-year treaty, and Israel will enter into this covenant of death. Once this treaty is signed, a very specific set of events will unfold over the next 7 years. The importance of the signing of this treaty cannot be understated. The treaty referred to in Daniel 9:27 marks the beginning of the 7 years of tribulation, which will conclude with the return of Christ. In the middle of the 7-year tribulation period, Jewish temple worship, including the daily sacrifice, will be violently interrupted by the Antichrist. This is referred to in the Scriptures as the abomination of desolation, and it is found in Matthew 24:15 and Daniel 9:27. It refers to the Antichrist's breaking of the covenant with Israel by defiling the holy place in the temple and putting an end to daily sacrifice at the temple. Jesus confirmed Daniel's prediction that the Antichrist will defile the third temple during the last days by committing an act of supreme defiance against God. The Antichrist will spiritually defile the Holy of Holies with an unprecedented act of desecration that will express his satanic contempt for Almighty God. In Matthew 24, Jesus warns the Jews, "When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, whosoever readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains." This event will mark the start of the last 3.5 years of tribulation, also known as Great Tribulation.
And as you know, Kevin, we're told something very interesting that happens at this point. The Apostle John foretold that the Antichrist, the beast, will be assassinated with a wound to the head or neck at the midpoint of the 7-year-long tribulation period. We're also told that Satan will resurrect and indwell the assassinated Antichrist. During the first 3.5 years of the tribulation period, the Antichrist will present himself to the world as a Messiah figure. However, after his resurrection, he will claim to be God. The meaning of Revelation 13 verse 3 has been debated for centuries. Some have said the fatal wound refers to the kingdom of the Antichrist, that he suffers a deadly political or military blow and survives. However, the Greek phrase translated as "if it had been slain" is the same phrase used to describe the Lamb of God, Jesus, whose death was clearly real and resulted in a literal bodily resurrection as described in Revelation 5, verse 6. Therefore, because we can identify the beast as the Antichrist of end times, who is described in terms of his world empire, we should conclude the Revelation 13, verse 3 points to his physical death and miraculous resurrection. When the Antichrist enters the rebuilt Jewish temple in Jerusalem exactly 3.5 years into the 7-year treaty, he will stop the daily sacrifices and defile the temple, after which he will be assassinated by a wound to the head and resurrected by satanic power. At that time he will be indwelt by Satan. The false prophet will declare the Antichrist to be God on earth. The Antichrist will demand that everyone worship him as God, at which time the false prophet will institute the mark of the beast, as outlined in Revelation 13, verses 3 through 14. The false prophet, the satanically empowered partner of the Antichrist, will then demand that everyone on earth worship the resurrected Antichrist as God. Revelation 13, verse 12 says, "And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound has been healed." During this time, all of Satan's cruelty will be released on the earth. He will call himself God and demand loyalty. To make matters worse, the earth will experience God's wrath, also known as the Great Tribulation. Natural and supernatural disasters will wreak havoc, the likes of which have never been seen before, as described in Matthew 24, verses 22. Disease, along with death, will be rampant and people will be starving. During the time of Great Tribulation, People will still need to buy and sell to earn a living for their families and themselves. The Antichrist and the false prophet will strike their most severe and horrific blow at the level of basic necessities. The Antichrist will demand that everyone worship him as God, at which time the false prophet will institute the mark of the beast, which will be a system associated with the number 666. Without it, you will not be able to work, buy, or sell. You will starve. If you do not take the mark of the beast, you will be beheaded, as outlined in Revelation 13, verse 15, and 20, verse 4. Those who accept the mark of the beast are lost to Jesus forever. No exceptions. If you would like to know more about the mark, please check out our podcast, episode 13, As It Was in the Days of Noah, Genetic Manipulation and the Mark. Part of the deception perpetrated by the false prophet will be his power to give life to the image of the beast, as described in Revelation 13, verse 15. This abomination will be a satanic image or idol of the Antichrist that his partner, the false prophet, will create during the second half of the 7-year-long tribulation period, the last 3.5 years leading to Armageddon. The false prophet will demand that all people throughout the world worship the Antichrist and his image or be killed. I believe this will be done through artificial intelligence, which we are seeing taking over now.
That's exactly right. We already have AI to the point that it could be used for this very thing right now. And with all that you had just mentioned playing out, there will come a point at the end of tribulation where a rebellion will take place. The nations of the eastern world, referred to as the kings of the east in Revelation chapter 16, will unite in a desperate attempt to secure their political freedom by attacking the Antichrist's armies. Revelation chapter 9 tells us of an enormous army of the size never seen before in human history or ever will arise again, and it comes out of several Asian nations. These armies will march westward towards the Middle East, where they will engage in a cataclysmic struggle with the Western armies of the Antichrist. An alliance between Japan, China, India, and Russia, and developing nations out of Asia could produce the armaments and manpower for such an unprecedented army out of the East. The prophet John wrote, "Then I saw 3 evil spirits that looked like frogs. They came out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. They are spirits of demons performing miraculous signs, and they go out to the kings of the whole world to gather them for the battle on the great day of God Almighty. Then they gather the kings together to the place that in the Hebrew is called Armageddon." These satanic spirits will call the kings of the earth to gather their massive armies to march toward Israel to engage in the final conflict of the age against the armies of the Antichrist. This final battle of tribulation is known commonly as Armageddon because that is the name of where it will take place. And it is now that Jesus will return in his second advent and we will be with him. He will destroy all the armies. Both the Antichrist and the false prophet will be cast directly into the lake of fire, and Satan will be bound for 1,000 years. The judgment of the nations, also known as the judgment of the sheep and the goats, will take place, and then the millennial reign will begin. Brothers and sisters, we are right at the time before these events take place. You can see them being set up right now. Don't just run your race, sprint to the finish line, because it is now directly in front of us.
I agree completely, Kevin. How can one not take an objective look around at the U.S. and all around the world today and not know that Jesus is coming soon? There's very little time left before we're gone. There's been a lot of events, technology created, planning that has happened. But frankly, there's not much left that can happen while we're still here. We need to vacate this world for everything else to occur. We're frankly in the way, and I don't know about you, but I'm ready to go home and celebrate with my family, friends, and the Lord. Thank you again for joining us for this podcast, and all of our previous ones as well. We appreciate it. Please give us a rumble or thumbs up if you like them. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Just email us at ministry@arewelivinginthelastdays.com. or just leave a comment below. See you next time. Thank you, and God bless.